Hi, everybody. Welcome. Join us for this last session for an enlightening discussion on climate justice, a critical conversation that will also highlight initiatives of our youth from all over the world. Together, we'll explore innovative solutions and inspire action for a more sustainable and inclusive future. First of our panel, we will be joined by Isaa, Garba. Isaa Garba is a co-coordinator of Islican Trust in Niger with experience of over a decade in climate change processes at national and international levels. Isaa focuses his work on the empowerment of local action that have implications to build long-term climate resilience. Ladies and gentlemen, Isaa. Next, we have Annelice Nuñez. Annelice Nuñez is an activist for La Ruta del Clima, a Costa Rican NGO that advocates for the right of the public to participate in the climate governance process and climate justice. Ladies and gentlemen, Annelice. Next up, we have Raki. Raki is the founder of Indigenous Perspectives on Climate Change in the Netherlands. Through his stories, he exposes the relationship between colonialism, capitalism, and institutional racism on and against indigenous peoples and how this has resulted in the current climate crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, Raki. And of course, we have Marina Maraschin. Marina Maraschin is a law graduate and holds a master's in environmental studies. She is on the board of a Youth Climate Leader Brazil and Portugal and organized Portugal's first local conference of youth. She is an activist trainer for YMCA Youth Makers as Climate Ambassadors Project. Ladies and gentlemen, Marina. Great. So we can now all be seated. So our panel will be a 40-minute discussion between the panelists, and then we will be opening it up for any questions from the audience for 20 minutes. So let's start this discussion. Thank you, everyone. How are you feeling? It's the last session of the day. Are you feeling overwhelmed? How are you guys feeling today?
I'm fine.
Okay. Anyone who wants to answer. I don't want to put you on the spot. Oh, thank you so much for that. Very important that we have a microphone for our panelists.
No funciona.
No
Test.
No sound.
No.
No sound. No test.
Okay.
Test.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a question for Isaa. So as someone who has been deeply involved in climate change processes, how do you see local action playing a pivotal role in building long-term climate resilience? And how can the youth contribute to these efforts, Isaa?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. I want to speak in French. It's okay for us?
Well, thank you very much for your introduction. I come from Niger, a French-speaking country from Western Africa with 1,200,000 square kilometers. 2/3 are desert, and Niger has started at the certification process, and also the big losses of biodiversity. Today, Niger faces many conflicts, conflict that is related to climate change, and there is a link between climate, peace, and security. There is a lack of security, terrorism linked to climate change, because these terrorists are young people who lost their jobs and their cultural origins. Niger is a place with one of the highest natality rates, 7 children per woman, and the school rate is of 80% of the people who don't go to school. So we are in this context of climate change and very difficult, and it is impossible not to link education and the development and the access to education. So going back to your question, obviously, young people nowadays cannot fight against climate change. For example, in Burkina Faso, a similar country, similar to us, we share a lot of realities in climate and other things. So young people are the pillar of development. We cannot say that we have the mechanisms to adapt to climate change without having these two categories of people, the most vulnerable groups, young people and women. All the development actions have to take into account these two human groups, because otherwise they will be doomed, and they have to be in the center of actions. And this is why in the GESAC project, and funded by the European Union through Oxfam in Niger and Mali, we have focused on the girls and the women, and the activities we develop are the promotion of green jobs, like, for example, in agriculture and forestry, also activities that can generate revenues with low CO2 emissions, in order to have them more active in the production of resilience facing climate change, and also to fight terrorist violence.
We all agree that youth engagement, youth participation should be in all levels of decision-making processes, and thank you so much for sharing that with us, Isaa. I'll go to Annelice. And we know that Costa Rica has been recognized for environmental policies. How do you think youth activism and public participation could strengthen the country's commitment to climate justice? And what do you think other nations could learn from this model?
Hello, I'm going to talk in Spanish. Well, gracias.
Well, Costa Rica through time has had a lot of recognition for its activism, and it is important to know that it has decreased, and this is the strength of public participation, and youth activism is so important. It has to be even stronger to have real incidents. And it is important that the local groups in our country have links and have these joint strategies in order to have a real incident. And then we know that youth activism has the role to generate a cultural change, and also about the things we want. And we want to these cultural transformations. And also what we want to learn in education centers. So it is important to have these ideas to reinforce these incidents of climate change. And these groups that are not formalized as NGOs, and that can communicate and transport all these ideas and opinions they have through formalized NGOs that can have a better incidence and connect with the local government.
Wow, this has been, sorry, I'm hearing myself through the translator. But thank you so much, Annelice, for that. Let's go to Raki. Raki, your work emphasizes in the connection between colonialism.
Test.
Sorry.
It's working.
Okay, it's working? Amazing. So again, your work emphasizes on the connection of colonialism, capitalism, and institutional racism in relation to the climate crisis. So what inspires you to continue with this work, and what message do you have for young activists who may be grappling with the enormity of these issues?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I want to emphasize that I've just went through a workshop of eco-anxiety. And I want to applaud everyone who attended that workshop because we shared the feeling that the climate crisis is giving a lot of people in our society. In this situation, I'm going to highlight that how not only me as indigenous activists, but many indigenous peoples in the world have faced this kind of oppression by these big corporations. And I'm going to use my home country as example, where once the home of the indigenous West Papuans, more than 250 tribes on the world's largest tropical island, housing the third largest rainforest, with BP Unilever being there, killing our people, destroying our houses. How do you face such a big threat while the global community is looking away? The thing that we have done for hundreds of years is being resilient because that's the only option we have. Knowing that anxiety should be there when such an oppression occurs. We have seen, me individually, living as an indigenous person in the Netherlands, finding a way how I could have a sense of power. And my weapon of choice was storytelling. Storytelling to educate people about the injustice that's happening in West Papua, exposing these big polluters, how they get away with such an injustice. And looking at the history, I want all of you to remember that the ending of slavery, the ending of apartheid, and many other revolutions never came from the center of the power, from those in power, but from marginalized communities, individuals who find the courage to come together, form a force, mobilize and organize. This is how we've won the rights for women to vote, how we've won many social issues, social rights, because of the social movements. And as indigenous activists, I've seen how 1/3 of my population have been killed the last 60 years because of these polluters getting away with the destruction they've caused. But besides victims, we are also immense climate leaders. Because indigenous peoples have been, conform every UN report, been the guardians of more than 80% of world's remaining biodiversity. And I want to give them space here, including all those perspectives that are not here regarding climate justice. So understanding how people, ordinary people, citizens like yourself, who have done an amazing job in your own very way, are the leaders that will lead us out of this climate crisis. And I want to amplify the immense superpower that all of you have. As proud, practical, educated guy, I have not a degree yet, I've shown the power of storytelling. Moving the narrative in the Netherlands, bringing forward the indigenous stories on climate change. Making people understand that we didn't get this carbon bomb after hundreds years of consuming, but certain structures had brought us into this situation. Learning to understand these structures, we understand the power. You can influence that power game. That's why I become one of the spokespersons of Extinction Rebellion Netherlands. Why I become ambassador of Stop Ecocide Change the Land. Joining Oxfam Novib and many other organizations, because alliances is where the potential lies. And this is something that I want to share with you. Learn from people, from organizations, from the past, and find your own very superpower. And I want to leave it there.
Thank you so much, Raki. I very much love how you emphasize the power of storytelling, because storytelling humanizes science. Because if figures and data and graphs have if it works, then we could have already won the climate battle. Exactly. But those figures and those data, sometimes they don't matter to us. Sometimes we don't understand that. So it's really important that we share that in a way that people understand through storytelling. So thank you so much for that, Raki. Mariana, could you share to us a story or maybe an experience of what ignited your passion for climate activism, and why is it so important that young people are involved in the process for climate policy?
Yes, of course. Hey, everyone. I will try to speak in English, but I have some lacks, so I will do my best. I will try to do my best. I started to, first of all, I was born in Brazil, but I am a person that was born in Brazil that is very privileged person, different for the most part of my population. And I, with access clean water, energy, a good home, a structured family. And I started to understand the climate change when the first time I was 13 years old, and I organized a forum. The name, it was Urgent Life, in my school with some organization that I was part of. And during this forum, some accident happened in a river near from my city, and we discovered and appeared 1,000 of fishes died in this river. So we discovered that some company and industry was discharging some chemical pollutants in this river. So during this forum, we decided, young people with 13, 16 years at the average, like this, we started to do a petition for the citizens around to ask for the public governments and to prosecute, to have a prosecute law to stop this discharging, and they need to pay some fine, to be punished. So after that, we could reunion a lot of signatures, and we could prosecute this company. And okay, everything fine. They was punished. They paid, but it was a little amount of money that it's not compared with the loss and damage for the community around. A lot of people that live in by the fishes and all the biodiversity that we lost. So I got very angry. I got very like, how can we do that? How can we possible accept that? And I decided to study law after that, so I can make the change studying law. So after I leave in the school and graduated, I started to work in a court, and I saw that the court in Brazil, it's very bad, like they don't do a lot for the rights of the populations, and I got very sad again, and I decided to give up, really gave up for the rights, the law, and move to Portugal, where I based now. And why I am telling that, it's because I was very privileged, as I say, in Brazil, but as an immigrant, I am not. I am living in Portugal as an immigrant. I choose it to be in Portugal. I could choose it to be in Portugal, but even though I am not privileged. So some strong in mind resurged, and I started to study environmental climate, and I started to work in NGOs that working with zero waste and other subjects related. Because I saw that we have a lot of levels of privilege, but we will never have a climate justice or even a justice if someone could not choose where they can live, how they can live, and have this all aspects that most of us, or probably all of us, have here. So my strong research, and now I can do my job to Brazil in a climate, but it was this, because if you think it's a very tiny thing, so some little river in my country that died, but when I start to study again, I see that this little thing gets a lot rich proportions in other countries, like her country, like his country, like her country. And so I think that's like was starting myself, and now I am trying to fighting against that.
Thank you so much for that, Mariana. It's really amazing to know where we all are coming from and our whys of being in this space and our whys of this activism. We all come from different stories, we all have different experiences, but we are all here collective asking for climate justice. And so thank you so much for that, for sharing that. I resonate with that a lot. For the entire panel, I know that, climate activism, and this is not new to everyone, but youth activism is seen and often criticized as lacking of power to bring about real change. So I wonder, how would you respond to those skeptics? And what successes or progress have you witnessed that give you hope for the future of climate justice? We can maybe start with you, Isaa.
Okay, thank you. Je pense que, comme je l'ai dit dans mon...
Well, I think, as I said in my introduction, that if you want a change in the behavior and to have a behavior that is responsible, we have to work on the foundations and the community. And this is why we have to work with women and with men, with women, because we try to train them because they have not been educated in school, and also as for the preservation of the environment. We also train the activists. We have a project in the community of intervention of different projects, and we train them, and this way the local government can take into account this dimension of the climate change in the local policies, and also the preservation of biodiversity. What we are doing, what these young people are doing is very important, because we guarantee the training, the follow-up, and also the participation in these projects at local and regional level. This is what we are doing, and so that the government takes into consideration climate change in all the public and development policies, in all the projects and programs, because we are a country that is a victim of climate change, and this is why we experience climate change so harshly, because our economies are based on agriculture and on farming. So it's not only that we have 3 months of rain, but it is very random, these 3 months of rain that we have every day. And also with the desertification process. And the only thing we need to do, or we can do, is to migrate. And we have to stop desertification through plantations in order to fight this. A lot of women are working on this project, and at the local level to have an impact on these local and community policies.
Thank you so much. It's really important that we listen to the community and we go to the communities. And again, as being youth community, also have to be consulted and really to make our decision based on what the community says. So thank you so much for that, Isaa. For you, Annelice?
Okay, this mic? Yes,
Yeah.
it works. Ok, cuando escucho que el activismo juvenil es idealizado, siempre...
When I
palabra. Y creo...
So I believe that the answer I would give to these people is, well, there's hope in us. There must be hope in us, and we have the right to dream about the possibility to bring a positive change. And I believe will make it, we will ensure change as soon as and as far as we get trained, we get empowered, we learn new things. And I believe that a technical capacity will be key in order to occupy decision-making forums or even, jobs anywhere in the areas that we choose. I am an environmental engineer, so I have technical knowledge, but of course many people who have had no access to education, to formal education, they still have a great deal of experience, of grassroots experience. And I believe that we all have a great potential for change as youth, because climate activism has to operate at an intersectorial level, and it does not have to be a closed debate. We need to reach local, national governments and even multinational organizations. Also, when we organize a forum like this one or a focus group, it is important to bring on board different disciplines, and we shall not work in silos. We need to listen to as many voices as possible. Experts in economy, political science, communication. We need to operate at a multidisciplinary level. We can all contribute from our own knowledge to contribute to real change. Not to speak about the importance of working at an intergenerational level. We need, of course, to count on the support of those who have walked the way ahead us, right, and who have a long-term expertise. In Costa Rica, for example, in year 2020, we set up a network of youth and climate change in Costa Rica, a group composed by youth, but with the support of people from different generations. And they were really helpful in helping us pushing the NGO forward. And I believe that it's very important to take this message home in order to be successful. It's not only about demonstrating. We need a long-term commitment, a long-term, everyday commitment. It cannot be a one-off. And, this is the way that will make us sustainable and long-lasting. I am very proud of having been successful in setting up this NGO. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for that. Wow, that was really amazing. And I love that you highlighted that all of us, whatever field we are in, wherever we are, we should be all on board, because the climate crisis wouldn't be solved alone. And so even if you are not tagged as a climate activist, you have the duty to protect the Earth and the planet, because we are all living in this one planet. And so thank you so much for that, Annelice. Raki?
Yeah, I think in line with what I thought previously is to reflect on the power of the people. And I think the youth have shown, and I think all of us know, the movement and the wave that Greta Thunberg have done to the world really put the climate on the agenda of, I think, our political agendas. But if I look at what is happening in West Papua, while the world is looking away at our students who are organizing and mobilizing our entire nation. If you look at the Dakota Access Pipeline in the US, how indigenous young leaders have mobilized the people to stop the investment of this oil pipeline. I think this is in line with the stories that most of us don't hear, because the mainstream media should play a role there. If you would ask me, every single day we are in war against these big polluters. But it is not something that we have been seeing on TV. Like, for example, it is possible because the pandemic has shown that we can change overnight our system, our behavior, our news coverage. But we're not looking at climate change as it is a war. That from 1.2 or 1.5 degrees to 2 degrees means we don't have any coral reefs anymore. So I think young people are feeling this urgency, and they're showing true leadership in our societies. Another example that what makes me really proud is that the A12 blockade in the Netherlands, I don't know if you follow it, that we had a marathon of blocking the A12 highway the last weeks, forcing the government to take a certain position in stopping or at least reducing the fossil fuel subsidies to these companies. We have shown that we are not powerless. And I think it are young people nowadays that giving me hope. And I think globally, they're the ones who are taking the right steps that we should see. And that gives me really a lot of hope and encouragement to work with young leaders, to get inspired with them, and to create change together.
Thank you so much. Wow, you're all very inspiring. Marina?
Yes, I have an example, pretty recent, that demonstrate the power of young, and it was in 2022. I don't know, maybe everyone know Bolsonaro. Thank you, guys. So a collective of young people that works in different organizations that I work with organized collective campaign. Name is Social Environmental Vote. And the objective, this happened, it was started in a festival with a lot of another young people. It was made by young to young, and it started in a festival when the youngs talking to the others, teaching them how can they could register to vote, because in Brazil we can start to vote when we were 16 years old. So to understand the bureaucratic things, to teaching, because no one talks about that in school or ever. And it happens in 11 states of Brazil. Brazil has 27, and it happens in 11 different states, and more than 100 events, little events. And a lot of workshops online about civil engagement, about environmental, about climate change, about our needs in the society. Okay, everything happened. We are strong in social media too. This is important in these days. And we could take off Bolsonaro off the power because it was the largest, I don't know how can I say this in English, but it was the election with the largest young electorate in the history of Brazil. We improved. Yay! So, and we could take off this guy and put Lula again, and we are hoping that he did a better job, but he's doing okay. It's not everyone perfect, but it was a very big victory from society for young people. We celebrated a lot, and this is a very big example that the young, it's not ideology or it's not something that, oh no, we can do the things we can make, we just need to be organized, find our people that can collaborate with us and just go and do the things we can.
And we all share that when we go home, when we go back to our own countries and to our own communities, we have to share that to our friends that even though there are a lot of skepticism on climate and youth activism, there have been a lot of examples of how youth have been championing climate action and how we are pushing forward a lot of climate action and lobbying with our government. At this point, I wonder if there are questions from the audience. We will be accommodating questions from the audience. Otherwise, I have more questions that I prepared for the panel. But if you have any questions, please feel free to. Yes. Yes. You. Yeah. Yes. And our crew is handing you a mic.
Oh my God.
Hola. Vale, creo que la prefiero hacer en español.
I prefer to make it in Spanish. So, as an activist, and young activist, and climate activist, how do you face the problem with youth washing? For example, in the COP, the governments pretend to listen to the young people, and then the policies are not the ones young people are asking for. So, which are the tools that can be used
Para
Claudia?
evitar el greenwashing. ¿Pero qué?
Yes,
For
at
avoid the
COP,
greenwashing.
did you get that? So she is asking how do you face or how do you deal with greenwashing, especially like at COP when our leaders
Youth
washing. Okay.
youth washing, so like tokenism, youth tokenism,
It's like,
especially-
I hear you, but I don't
Yeah.
advise you.
So our leaders are acting as if listening to us, but are not actually answering our questions and are not actually dealing with the issues that we have for them.
It's a mimetic.
I can respond, but I don't understand the question. I don't understand the question, but I think I can respond.
Okay.
If,
Do you want to respond?
I don't understand the question.
I think
Raki.
Marinel has the answer to
So,
this.
so the question is how do you deal with youth washing, right? So leaders who
youth
are
washing.
inviting youth leaders like, look, they're here, we listen to them, and when the event is over, nothing will be done with it, right? So I think, from my point of view, it happens a lot, constantly. That's why we're in this mess, right? Because the reports are there, youths are being invited over and over again. This is what, for example, Greta Thunberg is saying. Many indigenous leaders are also being tokenized, so it happens constantly. Those in power say a lot, but do not act on what they promise, right? So the solution is keeping the subject on the agenda. So they cannot look away. So we keep mobilizing the youth, we keep informing the media, we build alliances with all kinds of stakeholders to make sure that they will be held accountable for their words. That's the only way that works for them. Because otherwise, that's what we've seen, they walk away with promises and promises and promises. So I think all of us, I don't have to explain it, I just emphasize the thing that all of us have experienced. That's why we are here. So the solution is to keep pressure on these governments and these corporations with campaigns and activities like this. To emphasize the responsibility of the CEOs, governments who are facilitating them, and to hold them accountable. That's what I would say on this, and I hope I've answered something of.
Thank you. Yes, I just want to reiterate that it is very important to show up and to keep pushing because there's no other way. We will not be silenced by any intimidation from leaders and from different.
Can
Yes,
I continue?
of course.
Bueno, quiero compartir.
Well, I wanted to share that I was explaining to a friend, to a colleague, that in order to have an impact and so that they pay attention to us, and not just a game that I am just pretending to listen to you. I believe on the training and education process in order to be to sit at the table where decisions are made. So I had the opportunity to participate in the COP26 in the climate negotiation in losses and damages with my country's delegation. And in order to be there, it's not only I'm here, listen to me, I want to say something, because sometimes this doesn't work. So there was a previous process of 1 year of previous training with Climate Latino, which is an organization. And I think that this training process, in order to understand really how negotiations work and to have a real impact, it's a good way to understand and to know when we can talk and how we can do it. And maybe these programs can be replicated in other countries with experts that can talk to Climate Latino and how they can bring these programs to other countries, and we as young people, how we can get to these spaces and sit at the tables. That is what I wanted to say.
For that. Anyone wants to say something? Do you want to say, Isaa?
Yes. Je pense.
I think that if the young people are accompanied and can have an impact on public policies, everything will be all right. And we have examples all over the world, and we have to be demanding, and we have to be there. We have to be in the COP And we have to demand the governments in the official delegations there should be a minimum number of young people, and they have to be delegates of the country to advocate for the rights. So we have to impose it in the government, and young people have to have a voice in these election processes, because when politicians start ruling, they forget about previous environmental agreements, but they have to abide by them. And so people cannot make decisions from an office and that's it. Decisions about us. We have to be in this making decision process. Otherwise, the decisions are going to be against us.
Thank you so much for that. Anyone else in the room who has a question? Yes. Yeah, you.
There's a mic coming.
I love the many hands that are rising. I love how very interactive and participative you all are.
Yeah. Thank you. You've spoken a lot about holding power to account and holding politicians and decision makers and organisations to account. I think that's obviously a really good solution. I'm wondering what you think about the parallel and complementary measure or way of participating, of actually trying to take on decision-making roles and maybe stand to be a politician, or to try and work within organisations for young people to actually, who don't see themselves represented in the rooms of power. Most of our MPs and councillors are not young people, and they're also not people of colour or Indigenous communities. I'm wondering whether you feel like if people feel they can do that, if they are supported by the system to do that, whether that's a valid route as well.
Anyone wants to respond to that? That's a really great comment and question.
I didn't understand so much the question, so you can start to follow you.
So, yeah, I think your question is about representation. And I applaud your question, and this is why I really love the interaction between the audience. Because if you would ask me, how can we start fix the problem? Replace the people. With young leaders, with women, with indigenous leaders, because if we did it 50 years ago, for example, at COP1, we had indigenous leaders that could decide about the future. We didn't need it COP2. This is what representation matters. Why representation matters. So I strongly believe and encourage everyone. That's why I'm politically active as well. I mobilize my community to understand the political system, how the decisions are going made, so we can strategize to replace them, but also to influence decision-making. So yes, we should join political elections. We should become head editors of news agencies. So we will, frame the narrative. We will frame and decide the future, the policies that we want, the policies that we want in our societies. So thank you for this important question, and perhaps any other panel members.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, everybody. Thank you so much for all your participation, and keep the questions coming, because this is not the only opportunity that we have for us to discuss on these critical issues and critical matters. So thank you so much for our panels. Please give them a round of applause, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, we will leave in dancing?
No.
No?
Thank you, Marinel.